Hello and welcome to Amrita by the Book. My name is Amrita, and today I just want to do one of those other videos that I do from time to time where I don't really have a set agenda. I just have a bunch of things that I've been thinking about, and I don't particularly have a solution. I don't particularly know if I have all the answers, but I just wanted to throw things open to see what everyone else is thinking. And it has to do with shame and how it affects people on Booktube. Now, shame is something that is incredibly familiar to people from Asia because it is how our parents raise us, it is how they teach us things, it is how they keep us in line. And it's not just our parents, it's also our teachers, it's society in general. And a lot of that shame is bound up in terms of success, in terms of whether we're doing the right thing, the expected thing, if we are proper. And this idea of proper is something that is societal. But it's been interesting to me to come on Booktube over the past few months. And I joined because, I was cooped up in my house and I couldn't leave, and I felt like I was clawing at the walls, and this was an outlet for me. But I have seen plenty of people here on Booktube, some of whom have been here much longer than I have, some of whom belong to my cohort, and then others who are very new. And I've seen them struggle, and good on them for expressing it, some of them are more verbal than others. But I've seen more than one person, I would say, who has said things along the lines of, I feel bad that I haven't read XYZ book, or I feel bad that I haven't been able to contribute to this particular discourse, or I feel bad that I haven't been a good booktuber in terms of my content. And it really made me think about just how young a lot of people here on Booktube are, and how it must be really scary for a lot of people, because for them it's the first time that they've done something creative and that they have put something out into the universe, and it's literally them. It's their face, it's their voice, it's their thoughts, it's the books that they are reading, And I understand the stigma of not reading the right books. It's something that I grew up with because in India, as I've said many times before, there is the right kind of literature and then there is the wrong kind of literature. And it can take, this concept of right and wrong, it can take a bunch of different forms. There is a strong contingent of people who are convinced that if you want to read, then you should only read nonfiction. And within nonfiction, you should only read books that teach you something. So if you're reading a dummy's book, for example, then that's great. But if you are reading, a celebrity memoir, and it's just because you're a stan of that person, then that's bad reading. And then, of course, there is literature with an L, like a capital L, and then there is literature that is acceptable, and then there's trashy books, and nobody wants to admit to reading trashy books. I was actually in this clubhouse room a couple of weeks ago, and it was about romance novels, and it was just a couple of people. So I just popped in to say, I love romance novels. And the person who was moderating was like, oh, what's the last romance novel you read? And I was like, oh, it's The Boyfriend Material, and by Alexis Hall, and it's great. And I explained what the book was about, and it was one of my favorite reads of the year. And she said, oh, okay, well, you are recommending a good romance novel. I want to know what kind of trashy books you're reading. And I didn't really think about it until that moment, just because I generally don't differentiate between my books like that. Like when I say I'm reading romance, I don't consciously think, well, this is a trashy romance and then this is a good romance, a respectable romance. I don't really think in terms of those categories. So it really didn't occur to me until she said it. And she wasn't saying it in a sense to be mean or in a sense seems to say that, trashy stuff is bad. Like, she's a big fan of trashy romances. But it really made me sort of go through the list of books on my Kindle and be like, oh, okay, well, this is something that I can say is trashy. And the book that I chose was it's called Pestilence. I think I got it on the recommendation of somebody here on Booktube, and I haven't gotten a long way into it because there's a lot of it that's just making me go, I don't know. But it's basically some sort of romance fantasy that is based on the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, and within, I think, the first 10%, she's already tried to kill him in the most horrifying way, and then he takes her hostage and watches her pee, and I'm just like, okay. You get a sense for what kind of book it is after a while, and I've been reading trashy romances for a very long time, so I have an excellent idea. But it also made me remember just how lucky I am in terms of who I am and where I come from, because when I was about 12 or 13 or something, my auntie took me to the library and made me check out a bunch of Wilson Boone novels, because she was like, well, you're an adolescent now and you should be reading romance novels. And it is by far one of the nicest things anyone's ever done for me. She's kind of like my second mom, and this is why I love her. Like, she is a completely unjudgmental presence in my life. And she's not a reader herself, but the difference between her and my mom is that my mom is always like, well, have you read Jane Eyre? And my auntie is like, well, have you read this Harlequin romance? And both of them come from a place of love, like, my mom isn't saying that I shouldn't read widely, but it's just that she prefers that I read books of a certain standard, because that means that I'm elevated in some way, because there is a certain kind of snobbery around book culture, right? People who read X kinds of books are superior than the other kinds of people, like, these people only read YA fantasy. These are not like serious people. Then you have those women over there and they only read romance. Ew. And a lot of the judgment honestly comes towards women. It's always like, what do women enjoy and what is wrong with that? You see that a lot in discussions around fan culture, for instance. Every time somebody is doing like a deep dive into fan culture, there's some kind of implicit bias that holds that men invented it. I'm like, have you met women? The scariest, most committed fans and the most wholesome fans that I've ever met in my life tend to be women, because they just consume so much media, and yet the media itself tends to not just look down upon women who are fans and like the things that they are fans of, but also actively dismiss the things that they are fans of. I mean, just go on social media sometime. The moment a young woman says that she's interested in something or she enjoys something, there will be 100 people lined up in a queue just to drop into her mentions and tell her how much they hate it, even if they've never heard about it or don't know anything about it. Or else they'll tell her, well, you can't possibly love it as much as I love it. And if you say that you do love it as much as I do, then here is a test that I have formulated. You must pass this test with flying colors before I accept that you too love this thing that I love. It's incredibly stupid, and honestly, I mean, I know that it comes from a place of misogyny, but also I feel like, at this point in time, I see like every new generation of young women going through this over and over and over again. And I don't know how to just reach out to those women and say, you know what, you don't need to play by those rules. Those rules are set up expressly to make you feel bad about yourself and your choices and the things that you love. It doesn't come from a place of love and acceptance. It comes from a mean, petty place. and you don't need to engage with that. And that's what strikes me too about Booktube, when I see young people and also like older people, it's not just young people, but when I see people, say things and put themselves down, like here's something that I say to so I work in communications consultancy, and one of the things I always tell every new batch of people that I train is that you don't need to put yourself down, because other people are waiting and ready to put yourself down so much harder. So the first person that needs to be in your corner is you. Maybe you're not at the point that your peers are at. Maybe you haven't done the things or hit those marks that you thought you would, or would have done by now. Maybe you are not as good as this other person in, X area or Y area. But honestly, it doesn't matter, because a lot of things that you admire in other people are a function of their personality and their life experiences. And just as you are not that person, you are not going to make the content that that person makes. And to just dial it right back to the idea of public shaming and Booktube, I don't know if I can express this articulately, but I think public failure is a good thing. If you read something that everybody else loved and you didn't connect with it or you didn't understand it, be honest about that. If somebody says, here is something that is the pinnacle of pop culture and people who don't love it are missing out or defective in some way, be like, you know what? I am defective. Now what? And trying new things and failing at them, whether it's your Booktube channel, whether it's your engagement with a particular kind of literature, all of those things are good things, because it further refines what you like and you don't like. I always say, I have favorite genres, and that's fantasy and romance, but I also read very widely because I never know what it is out there that I might connect with. Even within my favorite genres, there are things that a lot of people love intensely and will advocate for. And I appreciate that, because one should advocate for things that one loves, but I find myself unable to engage with it because I don't care. And it doesn't mean that I'm a bad person or that I don't care for the people who love those things. It just means that for me and for the person that I am, this thing doesn't really work. I feel like the saddest consequence of this fear of public shame and of not being part of the discourse is that people start reading things and recommending things for the algorithm and to fit in. And that's really sad, I like channels so much that are talking about completely different things that I have never even heard about, that have not shown up in my own algorithms on social media, because Instagram knows exactly what I'm interested in, and therefore I get recommended the same kinds of things because they know that I'll click on it. But I depend upon my friends on Bookstagram and on Booktube to read things that are 100% different from something that I would pick up, because that is how I widen my boundaries and my horizon. I appreciate all of you so much. I can tell when you love something and when you're just doing it because you kind of got to, because you mentioned it in the title. And this is not a slam. Again, I'm not saying that you're a bad person for doing this. I understand peer pressure, right? Because this is peer pressure. It's you trying to keep up with your peers. I get it. But it's just sad for me because I follow a wide range of people, and I do that because I think they are unique and they have something new and different to put out into the world. And therefore, when I see them, being forced into this particular mold, when I see their insecurities and the tender parts of their heart and of their being manipulated in a certain way, it just really bothers me, because these are people I care about. Anyway, this is just me being Auntie Amrita and just, being very concerned and probably overstepping. So I apologize if this was an uncomfortable video. Let me know what you think. Like, do you think there is value in public failure and in doing things online that don't always work out the way that you think it's going to? I'm a huge proponent of public failure. I do different things on my channel. I do different things, with tech, with the algorithm. I'll always try out new things just because, it's something that I'm doing as a hobby, and it's something that I find interesting. And the moment that I have to look on this as work, as something that I'm obliged to do, I'm pretty sure that I'll just stop creating any kind of content. So I know which side of the divide that I fall into, but I'm aware that people have different feelings, have different ideas and experiences, and I'd like to know where all of you fall into, like, how are you doing? Let me know.